We are back. Welcome to day 2 of 7 days of emotional healing. Today, the boundary. Yes, the boundary. Today, we're talking about boundaries, the unapologetic act of choosing yourself, and the sacred act of choosing yourself without guilt. Let's not forget that. Choosing yourself without guilt. Yesterday we named what drains us. Today we decide what will I get tired of, right? Today we decide what we will no longer allow. Just tongue tied, right? Just a few minutes. Today we decide what we will no longer accept, what we no longer allow in our lives. The boundary, the wall, the something that puts up our hand, whatever. It reminds me of talk to the hand. You know what I'm saying? Talk to the hand. Give me some distance. 6 feet, right? Bag. Give me 50 feet. Like a boundary, right? But here's the thing. Boundaries don't look the same for everybody. Depending on your generation, you may have been taught very different stories about what it means to say no. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you said yes when everything in you wanted to say no? Here's the truth. Every time you say yes out of guilt, you reinforce tiredness, exhaustion. Boundaries aren't rejections. They're like restorations. They restore you from when you feeling like you getting depleted or you getting something transfer of energy, whatever the case may be, is to restore that energy back in you because now you have set the boundary to now recharge yourself. Think of it like this. When you don't set a boundary, your peace leak out through resentment, tiredness, and being silent, frustrated. Like you have this look on your face of frustration, but when somebody asks you, "Are you okay?" You like, "Yeah, I'm okay," but you don't look okay. It's short on. It's written all over your face. You don't have to say a word. You don't have to say a word. It's written on your face. But when you do set boundaries, you're plugging in those leaks, those holes that's causing those leaks, to keep your energy where it belongs. Another example is having a cup and you get a knife and you start poking holes and you pour that cup, pour water, whatever the case. Well, maybe, take that back. Maybe that's wrong. You have this cup and you pour water in it, then you start poking at it. Now you have water seeking out on the sides, but in order to stop the leaking, you have to plug it. You have to, tape it up. You have to stop the water from leaking through the holes. Because now the boundary has been broken that caused the leak. And in order to stop the leak, you got to put something there in place of the boundary that was once broken. You got to put something there and say, "Hey, I'm no longer allowing this. I don't like it. I'm not allowing it. So let me plug this up and set this boundary." So even if the water flow to another hole, it won't flow through here because I stopped it. I hope that's making sense. I really do. And it reminds me also of, it's crazy how God will put you in positions like if you ask him for something, he'll take you through this training course, first in your life. Because before I wanted to do day 2, the boundary or situation happened between me and another person that I'm speaking with, my friend. It was like boundaries were set, and both of us crossed them several times. But we realized that if you keep crossing boundaries, it's only going to cause more chaos. Boundaries are there, put in place, not for the other person, but boundaries are put in place from you, for yourself, to keep you from crashing out on somebody else, as we call it today. Boundaries are there from keeping you from going crazy or not controlling your emotions. That's what the boundaries are for. Is for you, not for the other person. If you know that, I'm gonna use me for example. I'm a lovable person. I still believe in love, true love. You can call me a fantasy, whatever the case may be, whatever. But I still believe that two people can actually love each other. you know, and I have to put a boundary up because I can't just give that love to everybody because one, not everybody know how to accept it, not everybody experienced it before, and not everybody wants it. That's a choice. And that's what we have to understand, that everybody has the will to be free. They have the free will. And if they don't want to accept it, they don't have to. They just don't want it. But that boundary of me giving myself to everybody is has to be set because, like I said, one of the three. But it also protects me from being hurt. Because you ever heard that saying, the taller you are, the higher you are, the harder you'll fall. So if I'm a lovable person and I go out and I get my love, the worse the hurt will be. And in order for me to protect myself from being hurt, I have to put a boundary up when I talk to people. Because I can't just love on everybody. I hope that's making sense. So let's pause and ask this. What comes up for you when you hear the word boundary? Do you think of it as conflict or you think of it as freedom? When you don't set boundaries, your peace seeps through the resentment. It seeps through that glass we was talking about earlier. It seeps through that. Where in your life are you saying yes when you mean no? What boundary have you been afraid to set? And what's the story behind that fear? That's crazy how boundary and fear can be the same. The reason why you have this boundary is because the fear of this happening. But it's like, what if we name that fear? Put a name to it. Let's call it protection. Let's put a name to it. Why? What's the story behind it? Why did you have this boundary? Because it was once upon a time I gave my love to someone who didn't appreciate it or didn't know how to accept it, and I was steady trying to give them, but I didn't realize that I was giving my love to, not that I was loving wrong, I was just loving the wrong person. So in order to prevent me from falling in love with the wrong person, I put this boundary up so I can't give myself to everybody. So I won't fall in love with the wrong person again, and I won't hurt. So once we put a name to it that we talked about in day one, we can have a story. We realize what fear caused that to happen. Imagine if you set that boundary. What would shift in your pause? What would shift in your life right now, in your relationships, in your energy? If you just say, "Hey, I don't know your life. I don't know where you need that boundary at. I'm just giving you examples of me, right? If I changed that or if I didn't have that boundary in place, what would happen? I would just give myself to everybody. I would just love everybody. But I don't want to do that because I'll be hurt all the time. Who wants to walk around and say, I want to hurt today? Nobody. Nobody. You know what I'm saying? You know, this week, let's just choose one boundary that we honor, we stick to. What the Gen Z say, what millennials say, stand 10 toes down. Gen Z say, what? Y'all help me out. Put it in the comments or something. But yeah, let's put it in there. Practice saying, hey, calm, clear, and have compassion when you say it. My boundary this week is I'm no longer giving my time to people who don't appreciate it. If I'm not getting anything in return, I will not no longer reciprocate. If I'm reciprocation, that could be a boundary for somebody this week. Reciprocation. If this Somebody do not pour into you, you won't pour into that person. So that's a boundary there. They don't call you, you don't call them. They don't text you, you don't text them. They don't contact you, you don't contact them. They don't say hi, you don't say hi. Boundaries. And that's, once again, it's not for the other person, it's for yourself. That way you won't have those insecurities. Oh, they didn't speak to me. They got a problem with me today. Oh, they didn't do this. We're going to dead all that. That's what we're doing right now. Emotional healing day 2. We dead and all that. What boundary are you going to put in place for the next 5 days? Drop it in the comments. Do whatever you need to do. I'm here. I'm going to read it. I'm going to listen. But here's a line that you could try, okay? I can't take that right now, but I appreciate you thinking of me. When somebody asks you or something, or asks you to do, I can't take that on right now. But thank you for appreciating, for considering me. I can't go to this, whatever. I can't take that on right now. Say it with me. But I appreciate you considering me. Notice how firm it is, but it's not harsh. Boundaries don't have to be walls. They don't have to be this rock solid brick wall. They could be bridges to a healthier connection. We don't have to put up a wall all the time. Sometimes we need bridges. We don't have to just cross over. We don't have to do that. It reminds me, once again, we're going back to my Bible study because I want y'all to check that out too. We was reading Genesis 39:9, and it reads, how then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And in this story, Joseph had a boundary. It's talking about when Joseph made it out the well that his brothers had put him in, and made it to the castle, the kingdom castle, made it to the president, the White House. You know what I'm saying? Right, homeboy, right next to the vice president or the president saying, hey, what's up? The president relied on this person. But the what they call them in the Bible at this time, Pharaoh, the Pharaoh of that era in Egypt, had a wife, and his wife tried to sleep with Joseph so many times, but Joseph's boundary wasn't just about saying no to temptation. It was about saying no to it was about saying yes to his integrity. Joseph had integrity. He didn't sleep with this man's wife because, hey, I'm like your husband, best friend. What are you talking about? This man trusts me. And if I sleep with you, that trust is broken. It's my integrity. And I feel like that's what a lot of people lost along the way is their integrity. Boundaries are spiritual. They're how we declare, I belong to something greater than this moment. I belong to something greater than myself. I belong to something greater than he. Boundaries, don't look at boundaries like a bad thing. Don't feel guilty for setting boundaries either. I'm a Gen Z's, my babies come to the fore. I started with millennials yesterday. So I'm gonna pick on you today. Y'all grew up where mental health language was already normalized because of millennials. Because we was able to put things in place, not necessarily speak up, but put things in place. So therefore, it would allow you to already have that mental health normalized as you grow. Social media transparency. And also, y'all emphasize on authenticity, being real, being raw, being true. Boundaries are self-care and identity protection for you. Saying no isn't often seen as a form of empowerment, not rebellion. You grew up in a world where mental health is part of the conversation. You've been told it's okay to protect your energy, to unfollow, to mute, to block, to do whatever you got to do to get this person out your way, out your mind, out your energy, out your aura. For you, boundaries often sound like, I'm not available for this type of time or energy. And that is powerful, Gen Zs. But here's my question for you. Are your boundaries protecting your peace? Or are they sometimes cutting you off from growth? Sometimes boundaries can lead toward avoidance, cutting people off instead of working through conflict. I'm just gonna block you. I'm just gonna unmute you. I'm just gonna mute you. I'm just gonna unfollow you. I'm gonna take you out my energy, take you out my aura. But it's cutting people off instead of working through the. Is that healthy? Is that a reflection of mental health? Is that helping your health mentally? Think about where you can set that boundary. That don't just cancel out people, but actually create space for a healthier connection. You don't have to continue to talk to that person, whatever the case may be. It's just creating a healthier connection instead of cutting people off. With no problem. The cancel culture. Don't cancel me. I don't care if y'all do whatever. It is what it is. My millennials, I'm talking to us too. We're showing that burnout isn't a badge of honor. Just because you put this amount of hours in does not mean I earn a badge of honor. I'm tired, boss. What Kanye say, this grave ship is like a slave ship. No, for real. It's not a badge of honor. It's a warning sign that you working too hard. You overdriving yourself, and that's not a good thing. And that's not healthy mentally. We came up from the culture of, the hustle culture. We were told to grind to prove ourselves, to say yes to every opportunity because you don't want to miss one. And now many of us are realizing that constant yes has cost us our peace. For us, boundaries sound like I can't keep pouring from an empty cup. I have nothing left to give you. I'm tired. And you're right. But know that the guilt is real, especially when it comes to family, work, and parenting. When we have to say no, we carry that guiltiness. But that's our challenge, is feeling that guiltiness, especially when it comes to family, friends, work, and parents. Parenting, oh Lord, yeah. But let me ask you this: what's one place you can say no this week, millennials? Not because you don't care, but because you care about your health, your future, and your wealth. Okay, I'm running ching ching. Gen X, you were raised to be independent. We all know, okay? To figure it out, to carry responsibility without complaint. Many of you are sandwiched between caring for your kids and aging your parents. Or aging parents. Your parents probably already gone. Boundaries for you often sound like I've carried enough. It's time to reclaim my time. Saying no is about reclaiming authority over your time and energy after decades of carrying responsibility. You value boundaries as a way to model emotional maturity. But I also know some of you were taught that boundaries are selfish. Let me tell you that they're not. They're wisdom. They're how you teach others, your kids, your community, your job, that self-respect is not optional. I had to pause right there, right? So ask yourself, what boundary would you free? What boundary would you free up to live more peaceful in this season of life? What boundaries would you put in place so this season of your life can be the resemblance of why Gen X is the generation of independent responsibility standing on it. When you set boundaries, you're not just protecting your peace. You're building emotional infrastructure for generations, because let's not forget God's promise to us. He said, I will bless your generations to come and the land that they possess, aka the land that they gain from your obedience and your guidance. Gen X teaches us boldness. Millennials, hey, Remind us that balance matters. Gen X shows us that it's never too late to rewrite the rules. Together, we're building a culture where boundaries aren't selfish, they're sacred. I want you to repeat after me. Well, I want to say it first and then we're going to say it together. You know, I am allowed to protect my peace. I'm allowed to say no. I am allowed to choose me. I am allowed to protect my peace. I am allowed to say no. I am allowed to choose me. I am allowed to protect my peace. I am allowed to say no. I am allowed to choose me. I am allowed to protect my peace. I am allowed to say no. I am allowed to choose me. Now I want you to hear it for yourself. Say it to yourself. Drop your generation down in the comments. What's one boundary you're ready to set this week? Let's learn from each other. you know. So this has been day 2 of the 7-day emotional healing. Stay consistent, stay lovable, stay true. Take care.